Hello and welcome back to I'm Still Playing. So I have to apologize because it's been a fat minute since my last video. But over the holidays, my family tends to travel because all of our families in either Houston or Corpus Christi, and so we end up doing a tour of Texas for about 10 days. And then on top of that, when I got back just before New Year's, I came down with COVID, so I spent another 4 days lying in bed recovering from that. However, though, I have recovered from that. I'm feeling pretty darn good, and I'm ready to kick off the new year with some new content. And if you're not new to the channel, then by now you probably know that I mostly play MMOs and RPGs, although I have occasionally played some gacha games. Spent quite a bit of time in Wuthering Waves and Hawkeye Star Rail. Now, Zenless Zone Zero is the latest hotness from Hoyoverse. It came out last July, and it has been absolutely killing it in the mobile game space. In fact, in December of 2024, it raked in close to $58 million in that 1 month alone, and that's just mobile PC. I'm sorry, that is just mobile sales, according to Gacha revenue. Now, I didn't check out Zenless Zone Zero when it came out back in July, but I've been feeling the FOMO more and more lately. So when I was sequestered in the office for 4 days and not really feeling like playing anything that I had been playing, I thought, well, let's give this game a try. And I'm pretty glad I did. Zenless Zone Zero has this sort of quirky, pseudo-retro contemporary setting to it, where you and your brother are running a videotape rental store like it's 1995, but at the same time you've got a deep dive cybernetic virtual interface in the back office. Autonomous robots called Bangbus are your assistants, and whole parts of the world have been corrupted by this phenomenon known as the Hollows. I feel like the art direction in ZZZ gives off a bit of a Persona 5 vibe, but it's been a while since I played P5, so maybe that's just how I'm remembering it. But in any event, if you're a little bit tired of the high fantasy setting of mostly of RPGs these days, then ZZZ might give you a nice alternative. Of course, the most important part of any of these games is the actual gameplay itself, right? Is the game any fun to play? Happy to say that ZZZ has a really solid action combat system. All of the animations are very snappy and stylish, response latency is really good, and all of the agents have a fairly unique collection of skills and abilities for you to master both for the individual agent as well as the team itself. In fact, team dynamics plays a core part of ZZZ's combat system. As an example, in this game, you don't have a perfect block per se, but you have a perfect assist, wherein when you swap out one of your agents at exactly the right time, the incoming agent dazes the enemy combatant, allowing the rest of your team to get massive hits in. And in fact, there's also the notion of chain attacks between your various team members, where each of your team members will let off a very stylish set of attacks, one right after the other. I'm not going to go into all of the combat systems in ZZZ. It's a fairly robust system. But needless to say, if you're coming off of something like Remnants of the Ashes, or Dragon Age the Veilguard, or perhaps even Elden Ring, you'll feel right at home with ZZZ's combat system. But besides the core mechanics of leveling up your team by fighting your way through various linear zones filled with monsters, ZZZ has a ton of other sort of side games and mini games for you to do. For instance, there is an entire roguelike game where you literally move through a 2D dungeon, killing monsters and collecting treasures, just as you actually would do in a roguelike game. There are full implementations of several arcade games, including a pretty darn good imitation of Vampire Survival. I was actually really impressed with how good that is. And then something that blew my mind away is that right now, in this month, they're running an event that is literally a full implementation of Arknights. I kid you not. It has resource gating, it has melee units, it has ranged units, it has a limited upgrade system. I mean, it is literally all of the gameplay from Arknights, except that Bangbus are your heroes. It's pretty freaking crazy. So let me say that if you enjoy those kind of side games and distractions from the typical material grind, ZZZ will have something for you to do every time you log in, and probably something different for you to do than the last time that you logged in. If you don't like those side games and all you want to do is to play the core gameplay, get that, I do, and there will always be the material grind waiting for you. I mentioned in a previous video about several mechanics that I wish more MMOs would take from gacha games, and one of them is the very sort of cool, sophisticated way in which gacha games use the UI to help direct you in terms of leveling up your character and acquiring resources and sort of making your way through all of the various materials that the game presents to you. ZZZ has taken this and actually ramped it up even more. For instance, when you're trying to figure out what relics what gear that you want to put on your hero, ZZZ will give you layouts that show you what the community is playing and what pieces of gear the community is using for those particular heroes, which is actually really useful. And then additionally, they still have the typical links for you to go directly to the activity that you need to do to acquire those materials. They even provide this sort of recommended guide version in the game that tells you what things your hero is missing, what you need to acquire, what you need to upgrade in terms of the equipment that you want to put on them, and again, where to go to get the pieces that you're missing and how to acquire that stuff. I'd say ZZZ is probably one of the best gacha games I've experienced in terms of the UI actually leading you through the miasma of currencies and materials and items and tokens that these games flood you with. And ZZZ is no exception in that regard. Now, there's one thing about Zenless Zone Zero that I think you should be aware of, and that I would consider a bit of a negative. And that is there is no, at least not that I've found so far, any open world exploration in ZZZ. I really enjoy open world exploration. I liked it quite a bit in Wuthering Waves. But similar to how there is it in Art Knights and many other gacha games, ZZZ is really all about sort of getting into the game, figuring out what activity you want to do that day, doing that activity, and then getting out of the game or finding more materials while you're in the game. So I think the combat gameplay is there. I think the game itself is really solid. I love the art direction and art style, and the characters are very appealing. But you won't find yourself wandering around an open world. And you should just be aware of that. So ultimately, do I recommend Zenless Zone Zero for a casual solo MMO player like myself? Well, if you enjoy the sort of latest trend of very action-oriented combat, like you're seeing in a lot of RPGs these days, if you enjoy a variety of games and mini games in your game while you're playing it, and if you would like a break from sort of the typical high fantasy setting that you see in most RPGs, then yeah, I'd say there's absolutely a lot to like about ZZZ. Keep in mind that there's no open world to explore, but that may not be important to you. And so if it's not, then yeah, you're going to have a great time in this game. However, though, before I completely and wholeheartedly recommend the game, I do want to offer my usual caveat regarding any gacha game. You should keep in mind that gacha games have an absolutely predatory monetization scheme. It's just like walking into a casino, really. You should walk into it knowing the fact that the game is rigged against you, that it's rigged for the house, that you are going to be gambling, and you decide ahead of time how much money you're willing to gamble and stay to those limits. And then if you do that sort of thing, you can treat it just like walking into a casino. You can have an absolutely fantastic time and not come out completely broke. But you just need to keep those things in mind. So that's going to do it for this edition of I'm Still Playing. I hope you guys have had a fantastic holiday and are looking forward to the new year. I know I am. If you're enjoying my content and would like to help the channel along, then please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'm really kind of working hard on trying to get that 500 subscriber level this year, so every little bit helps. In the meantime, wherever you are and whatever you're playing, I hope you're having a great time. Until then, see you soon.